Hello and welcome to this edition of Eye on Africa here on France 24. I'm Jean-Emile Jamin. Coming up on the show, thousands of pro-coup supporters take to the streets in Niger, marking the 43rd anniversary of the country's independence from France. At the same time, a delegation from the West African bloc ECOWAS arrives for talks in the capital Niamey in a bid to resolve the crisis. We dissect the latest news with Professor Olayinka Ajala. And several people are kidnapped and killed by Boko Haram in northern Cameroon after failing to provide money to the militants to fund their extremist activities. Thanks for joining us here on Eye on Africa here on France 24. Well, thousands of pro-junta supporters have rallied across Niger on Thursday, showing their backing for the coup, which toppled democratically elected President Mohamed Bazoum. Demonstrators were seen brandishing Russian flags in the capital Niamey and chanting anti-French slogans. And it all took place on the anniversary of the West African nation's independence from colonial power France in 1960. Emerald Maxwell has the latest.
Waving Nigerian and Russian flags, thousands of supporters of the coup gathered in Niamey for a demonstration organised by the junta on the anniversary of the nation's 1960 independence from France. They chanted support for neighbouring countries that have also seen recent coups, as they denounced foreign intervention in the country, particularly from its former colonial ruler, which has troops stationed in Niger to help it fight an Islamist insurgency.
They should leave. We don't want France's help. Let them leave.
A week after toppling elected President Mohamed Bazoum, the clock is ticking down on the demand from West African regional bloc ECOWAS for coup leaders to restore Bazoum to power by Sunday or face possible military intervention.
We have to prepare for all eventualities. And Excellencies, you are here for the final eventuality, that last resort.
The bloc has also imposed a series of trade, travel and economic sanctions. But despite the mounting international pressure, coup leader General Chiani is digging his heels in.
The National Council for the Safeguard of the Homeland rejects these sanctions in their entirety and refuses to give in to any pressure from any quarter. This hostile and radical attitude brings no added value either to the resolution of the new situation or to our joint fight against terrorism thus far.
Some of the sanctions are already being felt. Shoppers say food prices are going up, and residents of 3 major cities in Niger have been experiencing unusual, prolonged blackouts after Nigeria cut off the electricity supplies that account for some 70% of Niger's grid.
1 week after the coup d'etat in Niger, according to multiple sources on the ground, the broadcasting of Radio France Internationale and France 24 have been interrupted in the country. France Media Monde says it deplores this decision taken outside any conventional and legal framework, further depriving citizens in the region of their access to free and independent information. This incident follows previous cases of censorship faced by RFI and France 24 in Mali and Burkina Faso in recent months. The group reaffirms its steadfast commitment to the freedom of information and the safety of its journalists. The French Foreign Ministry has also condemned in the strongest terms the suspension of France 24 and RFI in Niger. Well, after a brief delay, a Nigerian delegation from ECOWAS has arrived in Niger's capital, Niamey, to negotiate with the coup leaders. It comes less than 3 days before a crucial cutoff issued by ECOWAS for Niger to return to democratic rule or risk a response of force. At the same time, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu told delegates present on Thursday to do whatever it took to ensure a conclusive and amicable resolution to the situation. Well, to help unpack all the latest events, I'm joined now by Dr Olayinka Ajala, Senior Politics Lecturer at Leeds Beckett University. Professor, thanks so much for joining us. What do we expect from these talks that will be taking place in Niamey between ECOWAS and the coup leaders?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. To be honest, I don't think there would be an immediate resolution to this. It's quite unlikely that Bazoum will be restored. I think the military might be looking at giving a timetable or trying to buy more time. Again, because they've received support from Niger and Mali, from Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea, as you mentioned in your report, I think it's going to be even more tricky to have any reasonable, amicable solution in the next few days. But the sanctions are biting, and hopefully there would be a move in some directions.
Well, now you've mentioned Mali, Burkina Faso, and of course ECOWAS, they will try and put the pressure on, but what kind of power do they really have should democracy not return to Niger?
They don't have a lot of power, to be honest. They have the power to block and impact on the economy, which might then force the military to give concessions. But I don't think they would want to use force, because it's tricky now that the governments of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Guinea are saying an attack on Niger is an attack on them all. So they will try to continue to use economic sanctions. As of this morning, the price of rice is almost doubled. The price of staples are increasing because of the blockade, so to say, because of the sanctions already biting. So they will try and see if that would yield more and force people to show a kind of negative attitude towards the regime. But we didn't see that today with the protest.
And obviously in the protest today, we saw a lot of Russian flags once again being waved. What benefit do supporters of the coup believe they can get from Russia, which they haven't got from the likes of France or other European nations, even the United States?
Well, the main issue with what they think they can get, they think Russia can help in the fight against insurgency. And one thing that a lot of people don't understand is the fact that there is the issue of human rights when we talk about the fight against insurgency. The European Union, France, and America, they put a lot of emphasis on human rights in the fight against insurgency, which is rightly so. But the people think that they could have done better. They could have gone all out and root out the insurgents and be firmer in their attitude. So they are thinking dealing with Russia would actually remove some of these human rights issues and give them the opportunity to go all out against insurgent groups. The same thing happened in Nigeria. You know, the issue of human rights and how this impacts on the fight against insurgency is a big deal. So they think Russia, through Wagner, might be able to help them. And then again, there's a lot of resentment against France. So they are looking outside to see if they can collaborate with other countries like Russia, like China, who would, so to say, respect their integrity and their sovereignty. So that plays a significant role.
And very briefly, then what would that mean for security?
To be honest, I don't think it's going to change anything. If you look at Burkina Faso, for instance, as we speak now, terrorists have taken over more than 50% of the country. So the military are not doing as well as you'd have expected in the fight against insurgency. Insecurity has increased in Burkina Faso. It's increased in Mali. So I don't see insecurity reducing, because with coup like this, you alienate yourself. And the country, they've done that. They are losing allies within and outside of the continent. And I think insecurity would be on the increase if this is not resolved quickly.
Thank you so much for your insights. That's Professor Olayinka Ajala, Senior Politics Lecturer at Leeds Beckett University. And we will keep you up to date with all the developments that are happening in Niamey. Well, Cameroon on Thursday confirmed that several people have been killed in new attacks by Boko Haram on the country's northern border with Chad and Nigeria. Military officials say troops have been deployed to stop more insursions and attacks by the Nigeria-based insurgent group. Indira Ayuk and Andre Yakana bring us this report.
According to official sources, 15 people were kidnapped in Kofia and Darak, both villages in the far north region of Cameroon. Amongst those kidnapped were several fishermen working on Lake Chad, which separates Cameroon from Chad. Before departing, members of the Boko Haram Islamist group decapitated 5 of their victims for refusing to pay taxes imposed on them. Analysts say acts like this are frequent in this part of the country, with Boko Haram Haram demanding stipends from fishermen to finance their extremist activities.
On sait par exemple que la vente du poisson sec.
We know that the sale of dry fish is conditional on the payment of a tax per carton, which is almost the equivalent of $3. Fishermen must pay a kind of tax to get a fishing license, which costs around $15.
Permis de pêche dont le montant avoisine les $15.
In February this year, 8 persons were axed by Boko Haram fighters in the Logon and Chari division in the far north region of the country. It is a violent reminder for locals that militants are still very active and present in this part of the country despite moments of respite over the last couple of years.
And game changers, history makers, Morocco, in their first ever Women's World Cup, have made it through to the round of 16 with a stunning 1-0 win over Colombia. It was an even contest right until Ibtissam Zraidi was fouled in the box just before half-time. Gislan Chebek's penalty was saved, but Anissa Lamari swooped in on the rebound to slot the only goal of the game. The Atlas Lionesses did their part. And then it was absolute agony as they waited to hear the result from Germany, South Korea. Well, that game finished 1-1. And it means even after losing their opening game 6-0 to Germany, it's Morocco who head through. Look at these celebrations. And they join South Africa and Nigeria as the 3 African teams in the last 16. That's the first time 3 African teams have made it to the last 16 of the Women's World Cup. Well, that's all the news from across Africa for the evening, but there will be more coming up on France 24.
They observe. They contact us. They report, film, photograph. They are the voice of the voiceless. Your eyes in the far-flung reaches of the world. The Observers, a network of 5,000 committed citizens working with France 24.
One of our observers in Côte d'Ivoire, Gaspard.
Amateur footage and testimonials checked by our journalists and broadcast weekly. On The Observers, on France 24 and observers.france24.com.
Your stories inspire the future. Your daily lives create the news. Your cultures, struggles and successes are at the heart of our programs. We tell the stories of those who made our planet and those who are building it. We tell the story of the world, shaped by the lives of those who live there.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.